Welcome back, everybody, to Surviving Hollywood Podcast. My name's Austin.
My name's Aaron.
I'm Johnny, and
Who's that?
This little guy right here just came home with me today, and I think this guy's going to be Charlie, my new buddy.
11 months. I love it.
11 months old, and he won't stop licking me.
I'm going to break quarantine just to come over to pet that dog.
There you go. Anyway, today on the podcast, we had a special guest, Sophia Banks, who's a commercial and film director. Her short film, Unregistered, played at Tribeca, and she got signed with CAA. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It was a great film. We all watched it. I definitely understand why it. I don't know if it won, but it got into Tribeca.
Her personality comes across to me as very super friendly and casual, but also very experienced and confident. What did you guys think?
Yeah.
I thought she was really cool. I was surprised that her accent was like almost not noticeable. You know what I mean?
I heard it a couple of times, but you're right.
A little bit, but not too much. But it was kind of cool hearing her talk about how just after it played, people were coming up to her after the festival, showing interest in potentially making it into a TV series. And she kind of, one of the big things that she kept saying is that like, it's really all about just making a quality product and getting it out to as many people as you can to see it. And that's really the way to get signed, because she didn't even have an agent before that.
I expect big things from her, even bigger things, because she's like hoping she gets picked up a few TV shows, various stages of development, hoping to get picked up by networks or cable or whatever, but keep an eye on her.
If you guys out there are filmmakers on any sense and you want to understand how she got into Tribeca and CAA, then make sure you watch to the very end of this podcast.
See, we're making you move furniture.
It's fine. I've moved it several times, and then I was like, all right, good.
Guys, okay. She is a director. She loves forming the picture.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, all right, hold on. Yeah, I normally get my lamp out there. Okay.
There we go.
This is a little better. The light switch is bothering, but you know what? It's all
It'll
I've
work.
got to do.
I was assuming you'd have an accent. Like aren't you from Australia? New Zealand?
Australia. Yep. But too much directing in America and acting class has given me not much of an accent,
Nice.
Interesting. I was wondering about that too, because I could tell a little bit, but not really. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, there's a bit like when I speak, you'll hear some words and stuff like that too.
Do
Gotcha.
you do acting class just to be a better director, or do you do it because you enjoy the craft?
No, I did it. I did it when I was young, when I didn't know what I wanted to be, because I knew I wanted to be a director, but in Australia, that's not really like a regular career that anyone wants. So the thing I had access to was like photography and acting. So, but I never, once I found out you could be a director, I was like, oh yeah, that's way better. But I did it and then I just did it because I thought it was like good for training on how to speak to actors and that sort of stuff.
Wait, why is there no directing track in Australia?
Well, like when I, so like when I was like 8 or 15, I grew up in outside Sydney. It's not a common job. It's like,
okay.
Sort of like it's a very, it's just not something that anyone brings up. It's something that happens in Hollywood.
It's not practical.
And we have a lot of good Australian actors, but I think, this is like 25 years ago or something. It's just not something that is easily accessible. And it's not like they offer film classes or stuff like that at school, but they always offer acting classes.
From a director's point of view, how do you feel about Crocodile Dundee?
I think it's like one of those things, like a classic Australian story. I know like Ridley Scott loves Muriel's Wedding, which I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's like a classic Australian movie, which I rewatch, which I think is great. But I mean, I remember, I haven't watched it in a long, long time. So I was very young when it came out. And I think you're like, yes, Australia. Yeah.
I think it's good. I was just wondering if, an Australian thought maybe it was like bad, but I think it's good.
No, I think it's just like I don't know, maybe how you guys feel about like Team America or something. It's like funny.
Yeah, funny.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
Cool.
gave Americans a perspective of what Australians are like, right?
totally. I mean,
Totally.
that's like my backyard.
Abs-
Crocodile.
there you
That's
go.
not a knife. This is a knife.
Exactly. But I mean, I was really, really young. I feel like it fits well in the genre of like the 80s and 90s movies, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, are you in LA right now, or?
No, I'm in Florida, actually.
Okay, are you kind of just held up in this whole thing right now, or what are you up to over
totally.
there?
No, I was here and then I'm sort of stuck.
Oh, okay.
Well, and the weather's nice, so I'm like, okay.
And they're loose on their social distancing down in Florida.
Yeah, and you know what? It was just the spring breakers that gave everyone a bad PR, but it
Yeah.
may open first, so we'll see, you know? But I sort of was down here before California got shut up, so now I'm like, how do I get back? Do I drive? Do I do, you know? So.
Oh, okay.
Were
Worried
you
about
shooting?
taking a break.
Were you shooting or just for fun?
No, I was down here for fun. I'd just been shooting. I shot like 9 commercials this year already. And
Whoa.
yeah,
Nice.
That's where the real money's at, right?
yeah, exactly. So I literally had shot back to back to back, and I was about to go shoot 3 more back to back. So I was just taking a few days.
I know they're like your children, but what was
Yeah.
one of the favorites?
I just shot in the Ukraine, like a commercial, and it was for Nestle, and it was this amazing. Hold on one second. I'm doing a live podcast. Remember? Yeah. Sorry, I gotta go. I've got 5 people here. Okay, I'll be done in an hour. Sorry, I didn't know. That's okay. Sorry.
Bring them on.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Is that your hostage?
That's my poor 10-year-old daughter. This is how it goes during filming. So basically, it was really fun because it had a lot of VFX, which is something I love working with, and I got to help create the story, and we built these amazing sets. And one of the things I love about filmmaking is where you have to like figure stuff out. So we wanted this girl to look like she was falling down like a Tim Burton style kind of funnel. So we're like, okay, how are we going to make that work? So we built a rig that we lay her on and moved her around, and then sort of had the camera drop like that. And something I hadn't done before, and I love doing stuff like that where you're like, okay, let me just figure it out.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Now, talking about VFX, the short Unregistered, we all loved it. We thought it was great.
Good.
And we noticed the effects.
Acting was
the
great.
effects.
The world was great. The story was great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tell us about those VFX.
So I'm a big fan of sci-fi and like Alien, Blade Runner, you know, all this sort of stuff. So I worked with a great company, Ingenuity, and but one of the things I love is world building. So I helped design all those buildings. I was inspired by an architect I love called Zaha Hadid. And so I helped like design that landscape and everything. But I'm a big fan of practical and CGI mixed together.
Yeah.
So we found this great location, and it really is the only thing that in my opinion, makes visual effects work, because you need something practical in there to create the lighting source on, and then
Like a foundation, sort of.
yeah, it adds to it. And like Nolan and Ridley and all those sort of guys are huge fans of that. So yeah, it had, I think, like 160 VFX shots.
Wow.
But because of doing commercials, you know, I was able to like work out a deal with them, and sort of built the world. But if you remember, which is also in the trailer, the shot where they come out and they're in the future, that was like the first thing that I saw in my head. So that's like where it started. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if, you know, and that's
I don't remember that shot. I remember it was all the future to me. There was, you know,
when they're in the grass and they come out of the dome.
When they walk, what is this? You're trespassing.
It's a huge crane. I'm a big fan of the crane. I love a crane. I get very excited every time there's a crane on my set. So I always try and have a crane. So
how did the crane shot?
How did you even like learn to do all those VFX?
So one of the benefits, I think, of being female in the film industry is no one, especially 10 years ago, no one believes you know anything technical. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go. So I went to visual effects school. I actually went to Noma and studied a bunch of visual effects. And
what kind of program is that? How many years?
I just took like, I didn't do like the full 2-year program because I was doing it while directing, but I took like all the kind of units until you get up to like basic compositing and Maya and stuff like that. Because once you start to go, you know, down that rabbit hole.
Well, I look at your work and it looks to me like 100% professional. It looks real, like the world, because you know, but like, so you don't even need to go to school for 2 years. And if you're good enough, you can learn how to do that.
Yeah. You just like, I feel like directing, as you know, and everything is such a deep, there's so much to know, you know what I mean? And you always have to be learning. So, I feel like it's just always learning. I always get the Cineflex magazines, you know, those Cineflex magazines. They're amazing magazine, and they have breakdowns of all the films and stuff. And then I just sort of found a great mentor who works at the motion picture company, who was like willing to, you know, we'll get online and break down different movies and stuff like that, because really I wanted to see what was done. But Stan Winston, if you know who he is, he's one of the first kind of creators of visual effects and the practical stuff. So I basically sort of studied his way because I decided, you know, that I really love the use of practical effects.
I feel like that really differentiates you. You know, anybody can hopefully you already differentiate yourself in general if you have a great short and great acting, but plus you have the great effects.
Yeah, no, I love like the VFX, and that's what I want to do, is big sci-fi movies and action movies. So that's really what I like to do. And I'm actually just in the process right now of finishing up a new short.
The Proxy?
Well. Yeah, exactly. And sort of working to pitching that for a TV show. So, which is cool.
So for our audience at home, tell us what Unregistered is about.
Okay, so it's a love story set in the future, in a future America where you can only have one child because they're trying to sort of conserve resources for the society, which seemed further then than it does now. But it's a lot of government control, and then it's sort of a love story and a twist involving that.
Where did the idea come from?
I'm very into like a kind of using sci-fi to sort of show out political messages. And I had a grandmother who went through the Holocaust. So I've always been interested in like the Nazi regime and how they came to power. So it's sort of like a mix of that. And also like the one-child policy in China. And
right,
like, where does the government control become too much? And when does it start to affect? And usually like the communist regimes, like the Nazi regimes, they'll always go for the family. Like one of the ways that if you want to control society is they'll try and put limits on the family, you know, whether it's like the Hitler.
That's what cults do.
Huh?
That's what cults do as well.
Yeah, but it's like breaking up that family unit. So that's like a big kind of thing. So I just was interested in that, and then just was like, what would it be like to live in this future? And just sort of a new, like talking about freedom, you know, it's really a story about freedom.
So what do you think the government, for like people in Los Angeles and where you are and everywhere, should the government be able to tell us to stay in our homes? Is that a power the government should have, or no?
You know, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but
you seem to me like you err on the side of don't give the government that power, just generally speaking.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Declaration of Independence, right? It's what makes this country amazing. And if you go back and look at the principles, like the only thing that separates, and I'm now a full American citizen, so I've studied and got my passport and all that sort of stuff. The thing that is really different about this country is the government works for us. So the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence gives us the power, the people, we the people, you know, have the power. And that isn't the case with any other constitution in the world. So I think it's just always good for the people to have the power, you know what I mean? And it's not just like you elect the guy and then he does his own thing. They, you know, back in the day, Jefferson, all those guys, they would check in with their people and that's what they would do, you know? So I think that balance needs to be maintained.
I like it.
So
And
what you're saying is don't wear a mask, go outside. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm
I
hearing. That's what I'm hearing.
I think you have to protect lives and do certain things, you know what I mean?
It's just a slippery slope giving the government that power.
Yeah, and I think like what I'm not sure about is like this whole like tracking on your phone if you've been part of like with the coronavirus. Like it's definitely opening the door and stuff. I'm not an expert like to say, oh yeah, we should just let everyone roam free, because I think that isn't like necessarily judging by that. And I think, there are people getting sick and that sort of stuff. But, I do hope that we're able to let people out, soon and sort of like keep the social distancing, keep everyone safe, maybe keep different age groups and things, away. So I think it should be judged by the numbers,
Right. So
but I don't have enough data on the actual like numbers to say either way, but I don't want it to open the door like 9/11 did on the Patriot Act. So I think,
of course,
you know what I mean? Like it's more about what does it open the door to doing.
We're still fighting those terrorists 20 years later. Are we winning?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just that reminder, you know what I mean? If all the people want to stay locked up, and that's great, but it's the people's power, not the government.
So the short itself, it didn't really touch on this necessarily. It kind of just threw us into this world. What is the backstory? Did something happen in the world that now there's a reason why there's a centralized government that's now limiting the number of children you can have? Is what happened before?
Yeah. So to be expanded on, and what we hope is the TV show. So we're in final kind of talks on that. Is basically so 20 years in the future, basically like food shortage becomes a problem, and so like with all global warming and crises and stuff, there's major like food destruction and that sort of stuff. So a third party comes into rise in America called the Conservative Party, and they get into power, and then there's like all this disaster. So they declare a state of emergency, and they're like, oh, we're going to let the people vote, but it's a continual state of emergency. So then no one can vote anymore. And they sort of say, oh, we're just going to have one child for a minute to conserve because we can't afford for everyone to have 2 children. But now it's like 18 years, and they've been saying that, and no one's voted in America for 18 years either because it's a continual state of emergency. So essentially a dictator's like got hold of the control.
Interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, Austin and I are twins, and I was the second born, so I guess I would have been the
you would have been that. You would have, yeah.
The one they got rid of.
Yeah.
Or
now, when you made this, Sophia, did you make it? And maybe this is a dumb question, but make it with the intention of this. Let's get this into Tribeca. Let's get rep by CAA. Was that the goal initially?
No, I think the goal was just like being inspired by people like Neil Blomkamp, other people when I was like, I could make an indie film, but I really want to make like big 20, 30, $40 million movies. So people I'd seen Matt Reed, people who've done shorts that went on to do features. And originally it was to be a feature. And then I think when it came out, we just had so much interest in TV that we sort of like developed it into a Bible and that sort of story. And that's sort of what's being going around now. So.
And where is it right now? On what stage? Or
we have like really good interest in a TV show. So although interestingly enough, just with this whole situation, because it sort of reminded me more, I was like, oh, maybe I should work on the feature. So I've been back working on that as well. Yeah.
Now after Tribeca, first of all, how was it received, and how did things change for you after it got into that festival?
Yeah, it was a great festival. I love them there. I was really happy because I feel like New York and Tribeca is a great place. They love sci-fi, so they're super interested. And so that was really good. And it definitely opened a lot of doors. And obviously I got my great agents. And
well, how did that happen? How did you get those agents?
It actually happened before Tribeca.
Because you're CAA, right? CAA.
Yeah, and they're the best. I love them. And so what happened is I finished it in December when I submitted it. So last year, to Tribeca, and I sent it to a couple of people, and it just got around really fast within agents, and they reached out to me.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yes, great.
When they reached out to you, were you like, well, what can you do for me? Was that the conversation? Sorry, guys.
No,
I have a lot of offers here.
Yeah, I feel like I had a lot of interest with management too, which I think, but I think I was just looking, like, I'm a very sort of like, I wanted a good fit, and it just happened that I right off the bat was like, I love these guys, they're great, you know.
Are there any major differences, obviously besides the people they know, but like just major differences going from mid-level agency representation to CAA?
I didn't have an agent, and I went right there, so I'm spoiled.
Damn.
So I don't know, but I love them. They're amazing. So, and I will be with them for life. So
whoa,
they're really, really, really great. And and I think that it just is sometimes, you know, sometimes you have those relationships where you just click, and you're like, great, this is good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So just for the folks at home, because the majority of our audience is up and coming filmmakers.
Yeah.
It was just because you created a quality piece of work.
Yeah.
But did you know somebody, a friend of a friend, to make those initial connections, or?
Someone, I did what I did just because I was like, okay, good, I'm going to share this, because it's still like password protected, so I couldn't have it going out on the internet, but I was going to share it with people in the industry, and I totally had a few people that knew people, but I didn't like try and get it to those people, but I was very, like, I randomly emailed like directors I didn't know that maybe I never got responses, but I was like, because, you know, the first step, like, if you think of your audience, like, obviously when you're a first filmmaker and you're making a short, your first audience is like agents and producers, right? And festivals. And then, you know, you make a movie and your audience is the people. So I knew that who my audience was, and then I did everything I could to get it to them. And I feel like you can find people's emails. And as I said, I definitely sent it to, like, you know, 50, 100. Like, I was like, great, I'll just get it out there. And that happened, you know?
And you just asked for their input, like, hey, would love your feedback.
Yeah, just like a really nice, I mean, genuine people that I admired. Like, hey, I admire your work. I'm sure you're super busy. If you have a chance, like, check this out. You know what I mean? Like, I wrote it, you know, like, there are some sci-fi directors, like, I was really inspired. You know, I feel like if you're always like friendly and honest, which is true, then you get like good responses, whether people watch it or not. You're not like, you know, so that was kind of my approach. I think you have to be fearless in putting yourself out there, because, like, you just sort of have to go for it and kind of like not care what anyone thinks, or if someone's like, why are you emailing me? You're just like, I'm just always like, hey, I'm so sorry, just thought you might be interested, totally get it, cool. Like, you just have to not care.
Right. Now the short obviously looks really good, especially the effects. Did you have funding for it already in place? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I put some money in and I got a funding, but because I do commercials, I worked with people that I'd worked with for commercials. Like I did again with Proxy, where you're like, cool, give me a deal on this one. And
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
And how important would you say is it to have a star name as one or two of the leads in your film? Because you had,
well, the star was
actors.
The male lead, right? He was the guy on Blackish.
Yeah, and Dylan also. I think it's great. Look, you know, I was listening to a Christopher McQuarrie podcast, right? Because I think he's such a great writer, the other day, and he was talking about like Bryan Singer and how like the first person he had is Ethan Hawke. Like, it's always great, but at the end of the day, you just want good actors, you know. So
you would have made the same short with good actors that didn't need to be on a TV show or a star name.
Definitely.
Whoa.
Because at the end of the day, like, here's the thing, the most important thing is getting your products out, right? So it's just like, you know, even is it James Cameron who's just like, pick up a camera, film something, you're a director, right? So a lot of, I think what people hold themselves back is they're like, they spend, oh no, I can't do this till I get this to do this. It's like, okay, fine, make a $500 short. You know, like I made spec commercials back in the day that were terrible. You know what I mean? But it's just like I made stuff for a few $100s, you know, and you get your friends over and you film and that sort of stuff. I think you just have to keep doing it, because usually the first thing you do is not great, but it's the, you know, kind of persistence over time. Because the thing with directing is you can watch and learn and get good with the film language, but until you're on set doing it, you can't really clock up those hours. So I feel like it's good to make it good. And I'll always, like, especially before I'm shooting, do table reads and survey people and like have friends read the script. Like, does this make sense to you? And then in the edit, get people over. I have them do surveys, like more on like, did you understand what's happening? Because I think that's really important. Like, what is your communication? But at the end of the day, way better to shoot nothing than to shoot something than nothing, you know?
Now the actors in it, did they go through the normal audition process, or because I noticed one of them was already with CAA, so was it just kind of like a joint package, or how did that work?
No, because I didn't sign with CAA until they were done. So
oh, got you. Okay.
The writer who I worked with, who's amazing, happened to know Trevor, and she brought him in, and he was really excited about it. So we had him, and then we auditioned for the female role.
And what was that audition process like? Were you there in person every time?
It was at my house, a few different people that I'd reached out to. Again, I've sort of like, I think one of the things that's helped me most is I will randomly email people and be like, hey, I'm doing this thing, totally not caring if people don't respond. And from that, I got a few good response, because it's like, you never know unless you ask, you know? And so we got some good responses and that sort of stuff.
Okay. So you didn't go through the traditional, like posting it on a breakdown or nothing like that?
No, but I've done that plenty of times for commercials and other stuff, you know? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And just to backtrack a little, you said you were in acting classes as a director, and it helped you learn how to talk to actors. Maybe you mentioned that. For me and Aaron and Johnny, we're primarily actors. And then on the side, we make our own short films.
Yeah.
Any tips that you picked up, like talking to actors, that you think separates you?
I don't know if it separates me, because I feel like, I honestly feel like
we get great performances.
Yeah, I feel like actors, you guys have a really good advantage. That's why I think some of the greatest, like especially comedy, that's such an improv thing. You have really good directors that are actors, you know, where I feel like, you know, where there's more technical, the action and that sort of stuff. But I mean, this is my own personal thing, because I feel like acting is like writing, right? It's not like cinematography where it's very like codified and written down. But I think different actors have different styles, you know what I mean? Like some are very internal, some just are like, they want an external note, like do it like this or do it like this. So I think it's talking to your actor, and I always ask them, so how are you feeling about this and the character and that sort of stuff, and you figure out what they need, you know, like some people need a long backstory. They need to know like where the character is coming from. Some are just like good and they're here, and they just like, no, I don't want an internal note. I just want to know, like, is it a little too much? Do I need to bring it down? So I think it's figuring out what type of actor you have in front of you and what notes will help them to get their performance, you know? And sometimes that's trial and error, because you can give a note and you're like, oh no, that's not working. But you can usually figure it out from how an actor talks about like the character and what they're sort of thinking about it.
Interesting.
Now, some of the commercials you've directed are obviously some big brand name commercials, like Pepsi, things like that. Do you enjoy making commercials? What I did notice about, well, of course, the paycheck. But what I did notice about some of your commercials, and what I really did like, is everything feels so cinematic.
You watched your commercials?
I watched a couple. Yeah, there's such a cinematic quality compared to what you might see on, you know, your regular TV or things like that. Can you talk to us a little bit about that commercial world and how you've made it, you know?
Yeah. So again, I think going back to directors that I admired, Fincher, Ridley Scott, had come out of the commercial world. And from where I was in Australia, remember, like, it's not like California where you're like, oh yeah, there's a whole movie industry. So that seemed way more accessible for me to get into. It was like, oh, okay, good. It's more kind of a way to go. And looking at people like Ridley, like Tony Scott, who I think is amazing. And, you know, you can watch Ridley's commercials and you can see him developing Blade Runner on like a Visa commercial he shot in South Korea and that sort of stuff. So I was like, you know what? This seems like directors that I admired had taken this path. You can get paid to shoot. And I liked, and you know, music videos, I mean, I grew up watching MTV, so I liked that craft, and I liked the idea of like honing the craft and getting paid to do it. So basically, for sure, my whole goal with commercials is like, do not hire me if you do not want it to be made cinematic. Like, I absolutely like, there's no like flat lighting, there's no, you know what I mean, like dingy. I want people in the same when I go on to make more movies is to know they're watching cinema. Like, I want that's what I want. So that's sort of my goal. But I think it's a fantastic way to learn how to shoot on a schedule, manage actors, manage clients, you know, which is like managing producers or the studio. And it's super fun because as I said, I'm like a sucker for like the crane, the Russian arm. I want all the gadgets, and it's great. And every time you shoot something, this is always my viewpoint. I always go into it and I'm like, what kind of tool can I get for my toolbox? Like, what is something I can learn? There's always something, always, like, you're always, you know, like, okay, like we're you know, as I said, I'm shooting this VFX thing, or then like, okay, good, you know, I'm shooting something where they're going to the moon, or I, you know, done a bunch of stuff with wires now. Like, there's always something fun, horses, dogs, children, you know what I mean? So it's good to have all that stuff because
you work with animals and children.
I mean, yes, when I have to. But yeah, it's just good to have all that stuff, and I'm always game for a challenge. But it means like, when you, like, I just shot this short Proxy that's 15 minutes in 2 days, and there's no way I could have done that if I wasn't done commercials, because I knew how to shut up the schedule, and I was like, okay, good, I got 3 takes per thing, good, okay, good, wide shot, all right, don't spend too long on the wide shot, jump in and get the cut, like those things that it's just like boot camp. So it's yeah, I think it's super fun. I know some people feel like oh, I'm selling out because I'm like selling a product, but I mean, they're 30-second or 60-second stories, and I feel like, you know, they even go through, the good ones will go through all 3 acts in 30 or 60 seconds. You can even see the inciting incident, you know, like the first act, the midpoint, you can go through all those points. So it's like a very good way to just sort of get more familiar with your craft.
From beginning to end, because for actors, it just usually takes the shooting days. How long does shooting a commercial take for a director?
You know, it's funny, in America, it takes like 2 weeks because you hand the edit off to the agency. But in Australia and Europe, you stay on for and Mexico, actually, you stay on for the edit. So sometimes 3-4 weeks, you know, sometimes longer, like this one I was doing in the Ukraine. That was for like an ice cream brand, Nestle ice cream brand. We were, because I helped write it with them, it was direct to the client. So we were like working on Skype calls, actually like cast via Skype to the Ukraine for probably 4 or 5 weeks before. So it just depends on the size. But at that same time, I was filming 2 other commercials. So that's when it gets tricky.
Do you have a DP that you usually shoot with often? Because like you kind of talked about how like sometimes on set, you learn new skills. Yeah. So like if there's a wire shot you've never done, like I feel like you have to have somebody there that's like, oh, I've done this before, this is how we could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you bring in, the good thing is like the companies I work with, they're very good at bringing in different people. So yeah, you have like your stunt guy and you have your VFX. There's a few DPs that I work with just depending on who's available, but you know, sometimes you go to a place. So when we were filming in the Ukraine, they wanted me to use someone from London, and I got to use someone I really wanted to work with for a long time, which is, I get like most excited about using an awesome DP. I'm like, yes, because it's amazing. I was about to go film in Mexico with the deep guy who DP'd Roma.
Oh, nice.
Well, I mean, as technically Alfonso, but he was.
I was going to say,
yeah,
he was the right.
Yeah,
right.
But I was like, yes, okay, good, like awesome. So that's really fun and exciting because you get to learn. You know, you get to learn from all these amazing people. But yeah, you learn, and you definitely are hiring. Like if you have wires, you have stunt people and that sort of stuff, and you're looking for. When you work with DPs, I mean, now I do like to work with people I know, but if it's a heavy VFX job, then we're looking, and the agency will also want to see someone on the reel that has a bunch of that stuff, as opposed to like something that's more dramatic and people driven. So.
And I know you said now the short is kind of going through its like pitching process. Are a lot of those meetings getting set up at CAA? Are they kind of helping you out? Like how's that process been like? Because a lot of people here are filmmakers and they want to know how to pitch to Netflix or something.
Yeah, you definitely do. Because I made the mistake before I had an agent of emailing directly, and they will not take submissions. So you need an agent or a manager. You just need someone to send it in, because you do have to send it. We had some people approach us after the festival also, which has been great. But I have learned by error that if you email to anyone in the Netflix, HBO and stuff, you will get an email from their legal department back saying they can take submission. So you have to have someone. But I feel like if you have it's just like if you focus on making a good product, like that's the winning ticket. Because if it's good, like it's not like something where it's like, oh, do they like me? Do they think I'm this enough? Like, especially as a filmmaker, if your thing is good, like people recognize it. So at the end of the day, you know, like schmoozing at parties or whatever, it's just like, you know what, just make a good film, you send it to people, and that's the ticket. That's the only ticket.
Right.
You know?
I guess I hear the brothers who pitched Stranger Things, they went to like 13 different studios and they had a good product, but like, I guess it was hard for somebody to appreciate their vision. Have you found that?
I think it's like, I always remind myself because I have other shows I'm pitching like that. I think one of the things is just persistence. So I think getting a good product, and then in the pitching stage, being persistent. I think like if you can put together like a rip reel, like where you take from other films, or try and film something for 2 minutes if you can to show it, I think that stuff will help. But I think, yeah, it's like no one thinks it's a good idea until someone else is like, oh, we need things like this. And then all of a sudden you're there. Have you heard the story of the Pirates of the Caribbean writer?
No.
Tell
He's
us.
Australian. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name right now.
Jack Sparrow.
No, the writer of the script.
Oh.
But I think he had that script for 10 years, and he'd go drive it every year.
That wasn't Shane Black, was it?
No. I actually have his email, and if one of you guys can look it up, maybe the IMDb. But anyway, he's Australian, and he basically would drive and bring his script every year because he was like, they should make a movie based off
Tad or Terry, Elliot or Rossio.
Is that the first? I think you gotta look at the first one in the story by. Hold on.
I'm at screenplay.
Looking it up right now.
Here, I'm gonna tell you 1 second.
Right here?
Yeah, go click on, I think, because maybe they've written the second. Click on, do you have IMDb?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, hold on. Written by, because maybe that's the last one. Now I'm like, wait. I definitely know it's the true story because they always tell it at the...
few people. Ted, Terry, Stuart, Jay.
Stuart. Okay, Stuart Beatty. That's it. Right. So he was the original guy who came up with the idea, and then obviously they brought on other writers. So there he is, Australian, of course. So basically, I don't know if it's 7 or 10 years, but he would drive this script and keep sending it over. every year, drop it off. And then like just kept like bugging people and sending it. And then I think about 7 years later, they were sitting around in a Disney meeting and they're like, God, we need to come up with some movie around our rides. Who's that guy that keeps dropping off that pirate script? What's his name? Can someone dig up the script? And then they read it and they're like, oh, this is good. And then he got a phone call. So
wow.
I think it's also like,
and that movie changed the game.
Yeah. Yeah. But you gotta like, if he hadn't like put it in front of people's face continuously, then they wouldn't have remembered that. So I think it's like making good stuff and then being top of mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if people think you're annoying, that's probably a good thing. They're like, at least they remember who you are, you know?
True.
Yeah.
Do you think there's more value in would you say making a feature instead of a short though? Because I feel like a lot of times might get more, you know, attention if it's a feature potentially as opposed to a short film.
Yeah, I think it depends on what genre. So my genre, I couldn't make a feature because it's like a $40 million. So I wanted to show what 15 minutes of a $40 million movie could look like. So for me, but I absolutely think shooting a low budget feature is like definitely the way to go, especially in like drama, horror, and those genres for sure.
What about comedy?
Dark comedy.
Exactly. Yeah. Those genres. If you can make something cheap that's a feature, go for it, you know?
Do you have any plans to direct anything besides sci-fi?
Sci-fi, action, thriller. That's kind of my...
That's the wheelhouse.
That's the wheelhouse, yeah. So I've got a few things that I'm kind of working out, getting attached to and working out the deals on that, and then just trying to develop my own stuff as well, you know?
I'd love to get your take. Did you like Blade Runner 2049? Because I thought it was one of the most amazing movies when that movie came out.
I mean, I'm such a fan and I loved it. Now, my personal opinion is I think that's an example of like, you have the director's cut for all the people that love Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Then for the audience, you got to take 20 minutes out because you have an audience now. Was it 30 years later?
Was it 30? No.
At least. There's at least.
Actually, you're right. It's probably about 30 because it was like 80s to like 2015, 16 around there.
So then you need to know the new audience. And I feel like that's probably what hurt them a little. Cause it was like, every second I saw it 3 times in a week.
Yeah.
I was like, Roger Deakins.
I saw it twice. It was so good.
Yeah. The sound, but that's like,
it was incredible.
But I think
I haven't seen it, full disclosure.
Dude.
That's like, I don't know, we may have to hang up right now.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It is, but amazing filmmaker thing. But again, like knowing your audience and 2 directors that I love that always talked about their audiences was Hitchcock and Spielberg, you know, that always talk about the audience, my audience, like taking my audience on a ride. And I think that, you know, needed to be thought of for the audience and not just like, you can't make a movie you can make a movie for yourself, but maybe no one will like it, you know?
It's a slow burn. The movie's a slow burn. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think even when they were surveying it, people were saying it was too long.
Long.
Yeah.
I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it, but I know it's not for everybody.
Yeah, but they should have had the Blade Runner, you know, Denny cut and then the one they put in theaters. But I understand.
Yeah.
It fit into the model of that, the kind of slow burn of the original and that sort of stuff. But you do, you know, audiences change. And so you also got to like think about them and who you're speaking to now, you know?
Talking about Denny, are you looking forward to Dune?
Totally. I just reread the book. Wow.
Did you see some of the photos on set, some of the photos that they shared on Instagram?
No, I haven't seen them, but I feel like I've probably been in like was it the last few weeks? I'll have to check.
I think it just came out a couple days ago, but it looks really cool because you see the costumes and you kind of see the local world a little bit.
Yeah.
It looks like it's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Good cast, you know, it should be a good movie.
Yeah.
I'm
a big Nolan fan too. I'm excited for the new project.
Tenet looks great. Yeah, Nolan's one of the best for sure.
Yeah.
Now, before we kind of go to plugs and everything, is there anything else that you're working on right now that you want the audience to know about?
That is a plug.
Well,
I like it.
Sure.
Before we go to plugs, No, I think I'm just, we're working on Proxy, which is a really cool story based off, that we're going to be developing a feature for as well. So in Japan, I don't know if you guys know about this, but you can
I know about Japan.
You can hire people to play family members or any person, like say you want to redo over your breakup, you can hire someone to come in and break up with you or be your family member or friend. So
That's
we
cool.
now have imagined future in Los Angeles where we're following a girl who works for a company that does that.
Huh. That sounds like a cool job.
Yeah.
How do I get that job? Right? Oh,
well, it depends. You wait and see what she has to do. So, but anyway, so working on that. And then, yeah, Banks Films, which is the company I formed, where we've got a couple of movies we're hoping to shoot in Australia this year as well, just because I'm Australian and it's a great place to shoot and good tax benefits and stuff like that. So.
Awesome. Sounds great. Where can the audience find you?
I am on my website. So now it's Sophia Banks, Sophia Banks.com. And you can even email me there. That's where I am. And on Instagram. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
We'll make sure to stalk you.
You want people to email you?
I love talking to people. I love talking to people about I want to make films for audiences. I like hearing what people like and don't like and talking with people, and people message me and I respond, even though I'm slow sometimes. But I mean, I am making movies to entertain people and for their enjoyment. So I like talking with people.
Is there anything that you've made that's on demand that people could watch right now, or is it all on lockdown?
It's all on lockdown, but hopefully we'll have something coming out soon.
Cool.
Maybe we can send over the short that we made. We can get feedback on that.
I would love that.
Totally. Send it.
It'd be great.
Cool. We're about to put that into festivals when they open up again. But yeah, we would love some input.
Oh yeah.
We're in post.
Oh good. You know, one thing, this is my little kind of trick thing that I think is really helpful. Is you guys may already do this, but one of the biggest things, because people ask for notes, right? When they're in editing and they get like all these random notes and this sort of stuff. And what's really good is like you make like a questionnaire, because at the end of the day, you don't want to ask like, did you like it? Did you hate it? You want to know like questions about if the story you were trying to tell landed. So if there's like a plot point, like,
does it make sense?
Like, what happened at this point? What was the person trying to do? Da, 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 da. So you make a question to just get understanding, right? Because a film is a communication. And that was really good for us. We did this on Unregistered because there was one point when we pulled the kind of string on it, which we fixed, that we found out people weren't getting or they didn't like. You know what I mean? But they didn't like for a specific reason because they didn't understand. And so that's like one of the best things. You just do it to like 10 people because you're not asking like, do you like it? Doesn't matter. You know, you're just asking them like, did they get it?
Right.
Did they get what you want them to get? And what will happen is if you do like 10 or 15, you'll get a bunch of other notes, but you'll find one thing maybe that keeps coming up and you're like, okay, we got to fix this thing because everyone was like, who the hell was this guy? Or like, where did the gun come from? You know what I mean? We never saw the gun before or whatever it is. And so that's like a very useful thing.
Awesome.
That's good.
I like that. Great info. Appreciate the note there. We'll have to use that next time, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sophia, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Send me your short.
Okay. Yeah, we'd love to share it with you as soon as we're ready to, and love to get your feedback.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for your time.
Sophia.
Thanks,
Take
Sophia.
care.
Bye.
Can't wait to see your stuff on TV or whatever.
Oh my God, me too.
Hey, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Take care.